Melissa Stratton was a 42-year-old woman who had mastered the art of making herself busy, but not happy. Between managing a soul-sucking job as a corporate accountant and the endless drudgery of maintaining her tiny apartment, her days felt like a never-ending to-do list. Lonely wasn't just a word to describe her evenings, it had practically set up a permanent residence in her life. One cold winter night, after an especially bland dinner of microwave lasagna, Melissa climbed into bed with her grandma's old quilt. She'd inherited the quilt when Grandma Rose passed away 3 years earlier. Rose had adored Melissa, and they were very close. What Melissa remembered most about Grandma Rose was how she was always scheming to make things happen exactly the way she wanted them to turn out. Melissa whispered into the darkness, "Grandma Rose, I need your help. I'm tired of this life. I just want something more. A house, maybe? A real home? Show me the way, will ya?" She snuggled in and drifted off to sleep. As if the universe had heard her plea, Melissa fell into a vivid dream. She was standing in a dense forest, surrounded by towering trees with sunlight beaming through the leaves. The air smelled of pine and earth, and a soft breeze rustled the leaves. Ahead of her stood Grandma Rose, holding a parasol like she was attending a 1920s garden party. "Melissa, my sweet," Grandma Rose said with a wink. "You're looking for a new life, huh? Well, let me show you." Melissa followed her grandmother through the forest until they reached a clearing. In the middle of the grassy clearing stood a small, enchanting cottage. It had a steep roof covered in a soft layer of moss, and a charming little chimney puffing smoke into the clear blue sky. There was a white picket fence, with a cobblestone pathway winding its way to a white ornate front door, adorned with windows that gleamed in the sunlight. A bay window jutted out from one side of the house, framed by flowering vines that climbed the walls like nature's lace. In the yard, flowery bushes bloomed in vibrant colors, spilling reds, yellows, and purples across the landscape. A tiny little table with 2 intricately designed chairs sat near a koi pond, where golden fish swirled lazily in the water. The entire scene looked like it had been plucked from a fairy tale. "This is it," Rose said, patting Melissa's hand. "This is where you'll find what you're looking for." "But where is it? Where am I?" Melissa asked, spinning in the dream like she could memorize the coordinates. "Not telling. Life's more fun with a little mystery. Now wake up, and don't forget to look for it." Before Melissa could protest, she jolted awake to the sound of her neighbor's cat yowling outside of her window. The dream stayed with Melissa all day. She couldn't stop thinking about the cottage. It felt real, like somewhere she'd been meant to find her whole life. She started Googling cottages in the woods for sale, but the search results were a mix of rental Airbnbs and homes so overpriced they made her laugh out loud. Frustrated, she grabbed her coat and decided to drive. She didn't know where she was going, but something told her she'd know it when she saw it. About an hour later, Melissa found herself on a winding back road she'd never noticed before. Tall trees lined either side of the road, their bare branches forming a canopy overhead. She was just about to turn back when she spotted a small wooden sign on the side of the road. "Cottage for sale. Turn ahead." Her heart leapt. Was it possible? Could this be the cottage? She followed the dirt path indicated by the sign. Her car bounced over the uneven terrain. As the trees thinned, a familiar clearing came into view, and there it was, the cottage from her dream. exactly as she remembered it. "Oh my God," she whispered, pulling her car to a stop. The place was even more charming in person. The flower bushes were bare now. It was winter, after all. But the koi pond reflected the gray sky, and the front door seemed to invite her in with its intricate designs. Melissa knocked on the door, her excitement tempered by nerves. A moment later, the door opened. She found herself staring in the face of a man who occupied her teenage daydreams. Oh my gosh. Alex Mercer, her high school sweetheart. "Melissa?" Alex said, blinking in surprise. "Alex?" Melissa's voice cracked. For a moment, they just stood there, gawking at each other. Alex still had the same kind blue eyes and lopsided grin that had made her swoon when she was 17. Though her hair was now streaking with silver and a faint scar ran across his eyebrow. "What are you doing here?" he finally asked, stepping onto the porch. I think I'm here to buy your house." "You're kidding." Melissa explained the dream, feeling ridiculous as she described how her dead grandmother had led her to this exact spot. But Alex didn't laugh. Instead, his grin widened. "You know," he said, leaning against the doorframe, "this place has been in my family for generations. My grandma loved it. Maybe your grandmother and mine are up there scheming something." Melissa laughed, though a shiver ran down her spine. The cottage tour was interesting. "This is the kitchen," Alex said, leading her to a cozy space with an old-fashioned wood-burning stove. "And, don't mind the hole in the ceiling. A raccoon got in last fall, and I haven't quite fixed it yet." Melissa stared at the hole, which was big enough for a basketball to fit through. "The living room's through here," Alex continued, "and that's where I found the ghost." "Ghost?" "Oh, yeah. Friendly, though. Just likes to knock books over on the shelves. I call her Betty." Melissa laughed nervously, wondering if Alex was joking. Despite its quirks, the cottage felt right. The longer she stayed, the more certain she became that this was her new home. And the more time she spent with Alex, the more she felt like an awkward, lovesick teenager she'd been all those years ago. Over cups of coffee, they reminisced about high school adventures. Alex told her about his failed attempt at running a bed and breakfast, and Melissa shared stories about her dull but stable career. By the time the sun set, Melissa didn't want to leave. That night, back at her apartment, Melissa had another dream. Her Grandma Rose was there again, this time sitting on the cottage porch with an old man Melissa didn't recognize. "Did you like it?" Grandma Rose asked, raising an eyebrow. "Yes," Melissa said, "but it's not just the house, Grandma. It's Alex. I think I still have feelings for him." "Of course you do, silly girl," Rose said with a laugh. "Now go get your man and your house." Melissa wasted no time. The next morning, she drove back to the cottage with an offer. One that included both the house and a promise to share a meal with Alex every week. Alex happily accepted, and as they signed the paperwork at the tiny wooden table in the kitchen, Betty, the ghost, knocked the cookbook off the shelves, as if to say, "It's about time." Melissa moved to the cottage a month later. The house was everything she dreamed of, and Alex was a bonus she hadn't seen coming. Together, they spent their days fixing the place up, laughing at the ghost's antics, and rediscovering the joy of each other's company. By the time spring arrived, the flower bushes were blooming again, and Melissa felt like she'd finally found her home, in every sense of the word. And somewhere, Grandma Rose was surely winking and sipping tea, pleased with the job well done.